Here we go. We are live for another episode of Above Average Black Men. We're short one person today because he's traveling. But we got a very special guest. Gonna be looking forward to this show. Excited about this show tonight, man. So as we get into it, you all know me, Chris Pender Sr.
Devin Pender. One comment, we have to get that to fade out better next time. But two, I always want to say, like, follow, subscribe, share Above Average Black Men. We want to get our subscribers and followers up. We want to interact with you guys. So help us out. Come on.
And we got my man, Coach Tre. You there, bro?
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah, we got my man. We got my man, Coach Tre here. So I always get it backwards. So you introduce it. Is it sneakers versus stocks or stocks versus sneakers?
Stocks versus sneakers.
There you go.
Each power change.
There you go. So you want to take a brief time, to describe that to our listeners and viewers?
Yes, sir. Stocks versus sneakers was a name that I asked to use. It was created by brother Mike Horsey. He's an accountant.
Yeah, you didn't tell me that.
He used to work for Mitchell & Tice.
Yeah, I know Mike Horsey. His daughter played with my daughter.
Oh.
It's a small world. But go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. And that's what he used to teach his entertainers and in particular the athletes, that stocks versus sneakers. The first deal is for the stocks. For the sneakers. The next deal is for the stock. Similar to what Steph Curry did with Under Armour.
Yeah.
I was told that because Nike didn't think that he was going to pan out, he went to Under Armour, and instead of going after the sneakers first, he went after the stock part ownership.
Well, I'm gonna share that story with you. But go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm a retired youth football and basketball coach. At the time that me and brother Mike was talking, I was still coaching the 69 Wildcats. My specialty was the 5 to 8-year-olds. And my parents, they were spending money on their cleats. And I would tell them, listen, your child's not going to be able to wear those cleats in January. So I like the term. I used it. I actually changed it to stocks versus Jordans after I met this little princess, Jordan, who had 3 open heart surgeries before she was the age of 2. She was so energetic with a half a heart, and I was afraid to get a hip replacement. But after seeing her energy, I went and got it done, and I changed it. So it was stocks versus Jordans, until my patent attorney looked at everything and asked me, did Mike call me? And I was like, no. He said, well, did Nike call you? I said, no. He said, bruh. He said, listen, even though the name Jordan is spelled differently, this is going to be red flag. Why don't you just say stocks versus sneakers? I was like, wow, that was the original name. So that's how that started. But my company name is Stocks versus Sneakers, Peace, Power, Change. Peace meaning proper education and cooperative economics. Power means putting opportunities within everyone's reach. And change means charity helps all neighbors grow economically. The reason why I added that power is because I've lost 5 football players that I coached, 3 personal to gun violence since 2018. And the first one was Bill Bethel, Will B. And it was over an Instagram text. So right now, everybody, as you walk downtown or walk in your neighborhood, is bowing down to the cell phone. So, and a lot of the children don't realize this is a computer. So we're going to teach them how to utilize this computer, this communication, and become a boss, built on self-success.
All right. Yeah, yeah, and that's great. I think that's important. But I think the financial piece that we talked about, to me, is huge.
Mm-hmm.
It is huge.
Mm-hmm.
And, man, I wish I had the board game because I'll pull it up. But this was a gentleman I showed you the financial board game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I've seen you teach. And I've seen the kids gravitate to it. Can you talk about that portion of it, like how you came, that whole concept and what's the premise behind that?
Yes, the board game is Robert Kiyosaki's. I didn't make it up. I just found tools to use. Most of the people know Robert Kiyosaki wrote the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. 85% of the people stop at that book. His second book is called The Cash Flow Quadrant. Which quadrant do you live in? And then he has a game called Classic Cash Flow. And it teaches everyone how to escape the rat race. He talks about how the traditional educational system has us going to school, say, get a good education, get a job, and then retire in the 40-40 plan.
Yeah.
Well, inside of this game, the first thing that the children or young adults or adults, anybody, learns is a financial statement. And the financial statement has the income, expenses, assets, and liabilities. So the very first thing that everybody learns is the lie that the financial world is selling you is that your home is an asset. Your home is an asset. That's your biggest asset. That's the biggest asset. But when you look at the financial statement, the mortgage is under liabilities. So it's an asset on the bank's financial statement, but it's a liability on your statement. So when you start to play the game, you'll see that you have no assets. And the rules to the financial game is you have to have passive income, which is going to be greater than your total expense, which allows you to escape the rat race. And we're not taught that. So I use the game to get into a dialogue. First, I started with my son. Actually, myself and a friend of mine, we used to have cash flow barbecues because I got tired of going to barbecue, and barbecue turns into Seinfeld. You start hearing religious talk and then politics and sports, and it's really boring to me. So I decided to let's have a cash flow barbecue where make all the food, they bring the drinks, and then at one point I'll just start setting the table, and then it becomes curious to the people. And usually we do not allow a couple to sit next to each other, and you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised at the interaction that everybody has once they start getting to the game. But the one thing that is consistent is that within 15 minutes into the game, you can see the expressions on the people realizing that they should have been doing something different. Mm-hmm. So now, it's richdad.com, which is Robert Kiyosaki's website. Mm-hmm. You can go out there and you can play it for free. So before I can get off the practice.
There we go.
Yes, sir.
There we go.
Yeah, that's it right there.
Now,
that's it right there.
Now,
so now
go ahead, Dylan.
I'm sorry, the connection looked like it was a little off right there. But I was curious just more so about your beginning and your background, where you're from and how'd you, discover the passion for finance?
Well, West Philadelphia, born and bred. Greenfield Elementary School. Then I went to Central and I got tired of being Ray's little brother and Pat's little brother. My brother went to Central. My sister went to Girls High. I ended up transferring over to Akana. I went over to left there, went to university, went to CCP to get my grades up, and then I took a trip out to Kansas, fell in love with school, fell in love with campus. Enjoyed myself out there, but the tuition was, too much for my mom to bear. So I came back home to Temple and lost my mind. I was back home, it was a new Maygon yard, and I was just having too much fun. So I said, Mom, send all the money to my sister, who is my shero. She was at University of Michigan. She graduated there, went to UC, University of Maryland, Baltimore County for dental school. And she's about to retire from the city of Baltimore as their dental hygienist for the last 30 years. My passion for finance came from my grandmother. She actually gave me my spark into history too, because she was my first bank. I would give my money to her because I would go with her to the farmer's market on 69th Street, and I saw how she handled money. But then when I asked her for some help with my math, I think I might have been in the second or third grade, she could have helped me. And I really didn't know when her birthday was. Like, she was just my mom and me. And I realized she was born in 1896, so she wasn't allowed to go so far in school. So how did I get into finance? I messed up a lot with my money. And one day, I used to work out the airport with a fire truck, Engine 78. And we had emergency, and over in the terminal at the emergency zone, we was just walking through the terminal, and I noticed at this book stand, purple and the prophecy. So I thought it was some type of spiritual. So I went and got it. So I'm on a fire truck driving back across the runway, and it was so intriguing. By the time I got back to the firehouse, I was in chapter 2, and then it dawned on me after I got to about the 5th chapter that I didn't know what the hell, I didn't know what he was talking about when he was saying rich dad and poor dad. Mm-hmm. So I realized, I went to the back of the book, I realized I was in book number 6. So the next morning I went to Penn's bookstore and got all the other books. And from rocking, and now, go ahead.
So what made you decide that you wanted to teach this to kids? A lot of times people get this information and they want to become financial planners. They want to become financial gurus. They want to charge up their friends. What made you decide that you were going to reach the youth with this? Are you there?
Because I didn't want my son or any of the youth that I was coaching to have to go through that rat race.
Okay.
We see it all the time, and we don't teach entrepreneurship in the manner that he teaches. And then being a fan of affiliate marketing, studying the platform Jeff Bezos has created, and then watching how all the major corporations have followed his model. So it's like the problem that we have, not just in Philadelphia or the Delaware Valley, but across the country, is an economic problem. And that's been a problem ever since the so-called Emancipation Proclamation. I get another transfer over to we were free so-called, or free from the chains, but we weren't free from that control because we never really got our minds right. And every time somebody steps outside the box and starts teaching the circulation of the dollar, which is a community based system that is natural to everybody, they would hang the black man or woman or destroy the city. You know, there was a book, I forget the sister's name, called One Black Year. And she talked about how close to 65 to 75% of the hangings were against business people, you know, because they never wanted us to be financially free. They always wanted us to be dependent on them. So this is one step to independence for children.
So what are some of the tips that you and I know because I've been there, but what are some of the highlights of the game? What are some of the nuggets that somebody could get by playing this game?
The number one tip, especially amongst the young men, is that they don't want a baby while they're young. Because when you play the game, you have the small deals, big deals. Small deals are investments, $5,000 or less. Big deal is an investment, 5,001 and above, which is compared to buying stocks or houses to fourplexes and eightplexes. You also have your doodads. A doodad is something that you're always going to pay. You know, like your car got a flat, you got to pay that. You got to pay the towing or to get the tire changed, or your air conditioning died, you know. And then you have the market. The market is where you can buy and sell different property. Now, playing by yourself, you get a hang of what's going to be a good deal, what's going to be a bad deal. You know, you start to get that rhythm. But the one thing that the young boys always talk about is when they have a newborn, which takes more money out of their pocket. You know, the one thing that I like, especially when I was playing it during the pandemic and we were on Zoom, you can actually look into the gentleman's with the young boys' eyes and see that they were really into it. Now, when I was at the McDaniel School, working with your young people, they really got into it. But the one thing that really stood out was that they were helping each other. Right. If they got stuck on a word, if they got stuck on a math problem. And that same thing happened the first time I used the system with the young boys with the Kurt Berry Foundation. But
not to cut you off, but you're trying to sell this game, and this is great information. No, hear me out. You're trying to sell this game. I mean, you're trying to get people to buy into this, not spend money. But so if I'm listening to this show right now, you know, and I'm trying to pick up, you know, the gist of what's going on here. You know, when I meant sell, I don't mean you trying to sell the game, but how do you get somebody to buy into this? How do you get somebody to say, man, I want to try this?
Well, right now, I'm focusing on going into the schools, after school program, because of what I experienced with the After School All-Stars and what I experienced with Harambe this past spring. The children want to learn about this, you know, so this is just the stepping stone into the process of getting them to become a youth entrepreneur. So this is just, instead of me just jumping in, talking about this is how you're going to start a business, yada, 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 look at this. And then teach them This is what you need to know. This is why you need to have a business, you know. And then that's another reason why I started the sneaker fundraiser. Because my focus right now is to help the children, help the parents pay their monthly expenses.
Now, I was just curious. I hear you say you have a lot of success.
Go
ahead. Yeah. Like I was saying, I was just curious to see, because I know you said you had a lot of success, you know, with the after-school all-stars and different things like that. But, you know, when I was in school, I don't really recall, you know, you were teaching us about owning your own business or different things like that. Where do you think that disconnect really came from? You know, did it start like an earlier generation? Because like I said, I don't recall anyone telling me about anything like that. It was just Y equals MX plus B, you know, all that different things like that you don't even really use today.
Yeah. Well, there's really hasn't been any. Well, one of my best friends, Kevin Baylor, his grandfather worked at a cleaners, Wilson Cleaners in New Jersey. And his side hustle was cleaning clothes he had his own little spot inside of Wilson Cleaners. So that was one of our first jobs, was to help take the clothes out the back. So as I grew in that and got more experience, one day I had to take him and Miss Amelia to the tax person so they could do taxes. So this is my really first experience with taxes. And when I saw him sign the form and it stated that he made about $42,000 that year, that's when I started thinking, wait a minute, I know that I bring him at least $5,000 to $6,000 on a Saturday. So that's when I started thinking entrepreneurship, you know. But with the children, like I said, they need to know about this.
But I know I've been, you know.
When I grew up, and Chris would tell you, there was black businesses in my neighborhood. And then all of a sudden, they started to fade out. Then we had the Koreans coming. And it just, now everybody's in our neighborhood except for us. And as that faded, as the businesses faded out on the televisions and entertainment, it was all the negative stuff that was coming. So we would never, the only business people that was portrayed on television in the 90s were the drug dealers, the rappers, the ball players. So that's what everybody is singing, you know. And now you do have some financial people coming in teaching the rules of 72 and how to save the money, but nobody's really teaching the children to be an entrepreneur. There's a lot of them out there, you know, and I know you see them online. People are teaching them how to sell T-shirts and other things.
So what I meant by selling, and what I meant by selling, I know we weren't talking about dollars, but I know when I had this, I had to sell this program to the kids before you got there. I had to say, hey, yo, this is why you need this. And that's what I meant by selling it, because I know this is not a topic that is eagerly embraced by our youth. So I know we have listeners right now. So what are 5 things that you can share with them, or 4 things about this game, you know, you can share with them? Like, for instance, I know the thing that stood out to me, and it's kind of funny because when I describe the game, I always talk about this, the time we played it, when the child support card. Now, I thought it was funny, but I thought it was great because you're teaching these kids that, you know, that child support is something you deal with. You got to answer questions to get to that 520 credit score so you can buy a house. You know, so what are some of the things like that come out of this game that people listening can kind of be intrigued by?
Well, you're talking about a different game altogether. You're talking about the Road to Prosperity game.
But what I'm saying,
Yeah,
so what are some of the nuggets similar to that you're giving out?
Yeah, what I would tell your listening audience is to, one, go to richdad.com. Richdad.com is a free site. It's a free site. Because we telling you and you actually participating is two different things. That's how I was able to sell it at the After School All Stars. You're gonna have fun. You're gonna learn income, expenses, assets, and liabilities. When the parents actually sit down and play this game with their children, they're learning too. They're learning, and the child is learning. The child is learning something new, and the parent is learning something new. And we're now working on bringing that family atmosphere back together. The other thing about it is when you're playing against somebody else, you'll get into a situation where you could buy or sell the property from that person. So it gets into a real live fun atmosphere as we had back when we was growing up playing Monopoly. When we played Monopoly, we played Life, we played Risk, and it's all about the board. It's all about everybody coming and communicating. Right now, nobody's communicating. Everybody's looking at the cell phone. Everybody's looking at TikTok. Everybody's looking at some type of social media, instead of sitting down and embracing. But if you have children between the ages of 6 and 10, I recommend you get the cash flow for kids. It's a good investment in your child's financial future. If you have children 11 to 111, the classic cash flow.
So,
if you don't want to spend the money, just go online and do it.
So I was just curious. This definitely sounds like a very awesome game. You can learn a lot from it. What is there like a way? Or I'm just curious to think. Do you think there's something it can improve on in the game in itself, or is there like a more digital friendly game that people can kind of get accustomed to? Because not everyone has like the means to get actual physical, game board and everything. But if you can get on your phone or you can get on a computer and do the same thing, I mean, like, what would be the difference?
The difference on the computer is that you can play by yourself, or you can play against people around the world. Because once you log in, you'll see there's maybe about 15 or 20 rooms going on at a time. And you can just jump in and play. You can play with your cousin in Texas, and it becomes addictive, but to a good sense, because now you've learned something new. And it will change your mindset. It will change your attitude. It will change your thinking. And you asked me about a key point to take away. They learn that, and this is what I teach the children before we really get started, that assets put money in your pocket and liabilities take money out. So that's something that they can take away when they earn some money or have some money. And then they start to look at, well, is what I'm about to purchase, is it going to put money in my pocket or is it going to take money out? And when they start getting to that type of critical thinking at that early age, things change. And I also use it as a springboard into entrepreneurship.
Now, do you have a plan to get into more programs or develop more programs around this game? Do you have a plan to get into more schools?
Oh, yes. Right now, I'm just beta testing with Harambe and your father set me up with Overbrook Educational Center, I believe it is.
Yeah, OEC. Yep.
But I have a relationship with the big school, the big picture school, the whole box, and also have a relationship with the athletic director at Temple University, who has put me in contact with a nonprofit organization that has student athletes. And then the nonprofit organization pays the student athletes to come out and volunteer. So when I plant my flag in other schools, I'll be able to reach out to them so the volunteers can come. Because I would rather have young people be around the children, especially the college students, so they can, they're closer to their age, and then they can talk about, their experiences as high school students and what it took for them to get them in college. And that's a connection that we lost, I believe, in the 90s, where a lot of the college students that grew up in the neighborhood didn't come back to the neighborhood to teach those behind them how to get out. So that's basically being a bridge builder.
So as we look at the game, what is something, and I know you gave us the website, but somebody listened, what is something that would stand out to somebody playing this game? Like I talked about, obviously it was a different game, but those things stood out to me. The credit, the credit score you had to get to buy a house, the child support. So what about this game? What you're talking about? What's going to stand out to somebody?
Oh, that's basically the same thing, except for the credit. Mm-hmm. Now, speaking on that game, that was a Road to Prosperity game. And another reason why I'm working with the children, because the schools that I'm working with will be beta testing the Find X app when it comes out in spring of 2023. And that game, that particular game or app is going to allow the children to further enhance their financial education and be rewarded with the correct answers. They're going to be rewarded with tokens, and these tokens will be have value to them, and they will be able to transfer the tokens. We have a partnership with a Gift to College, which is a 529 savings plan, a savings company, and they can transfer the tokens over to the Gift to College, which will start them a college savings plan. And we also are working on partnerships with the UNCF and HBCUs, so they can then, let's say a child started, I'm working with 6th to 8th graders now, and they started working with the Find X platform. And by the time they get to the 12th grade, they have about 15,000 tokens, and decide to go to Delaware State. And we have a partnership with Delaware State. So before they have to take out a loan or anything, they can just go right in, tap their phone, boom, pay for their college tuition, their room and board, and other things. So basically, this is just a stepping stone to get the excitement into the children. And like I said, to utilize their phone with the app, with the Find X, is going to take them to a whole nother level, especially when it comes to that credit, understanding credit, and then paying for their college tuition. So there's not going to be an excuse for not having money.
Can we explain these other games real fast? It kind of piqued my curiosity when you said Road to Prosperity. I heard you mention that one. What's some of the other ones? And like, what are some of those concepts?
Road to Prosperity is just the board game of Find X. Okay, we were going around the city. Road to Prosperity was created by a little known Black history fact, a gentleman named D. Alexis Sanders. He was born in the projects of downtown Brooklyn, and he was bused up Queens. In the 10th grade, they gave the children an option and the parents an option. If your child is able to pass a certain test, your child can graduate high school, coming out of the 10th grade. He had the second highest score. They immediately put him onto Wall Street. So what you're going to experience in the road of prosperity, which is just classic cash flow times 10, is basically about credit. And it's a trivia game. So you have financial literacy trivia questions, you have civil rights trivia questions, you have crime and punishment trivia questions, all the way up to sports and entertainment. And now, because we were going around the city, we had presented it to the universal schools, all the principals there, boys Latin. We had a nice conversation with the juvenile justice system, a center on 48th Street, and Brother Bilal Kaon. We were able to get the director of Congress at the time, Harold T. Epps. He became the president of the board. So we had everything flowing. We were about to launch it on April 4th, 2020, but the city was shut down. And we had to take it to the technical side. So that should be out. I can get the link to you.
Mm-hmm.
But that is going to be a game changer, especially since you can look up Pennsylvania House Bill 242, which came into session on January 25th of 2021. And the main piece of that was financial education inside of the school systems throughout the state, and making it a requirement that high school seniors graduate with a certification of financial education. That particular bill started January, and it's right now is dead in the court.
Now, I remember you saying you're going around different schools trying to get this thing launched. You said April 2020. That's when everything kind of shut down. How were you able to adapt moving forward?
Through the pandemic?
Yes.
Zoom. I was having Zoom meetings with former players of mine, and we would just get on a Zoom, and I was learning Zoom, so I was able to screen share, and we played the cash flow game online, and just started working with that.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the back of the game, and you offer, to Devin's point, Escape the Rat Race, Rich Poor Dad for teens. You got Cash Flow 101 board game, Cash Flow Classic online video game, Rich Kid, Smart Kid, website for kids. So it is a nice variety here, for kind of family. But I know,
matter of fact,
I know dealing with the population sometimes who entrenched in a poverty mindset, getting them interested in ways, like for instance, I had a conversation today. I 10 young men I meet with in Norristown at a school, and this is the conversation. Actually, 12. This is the conversation we were having today. And so you do run into the question: is when am I ever going to have money? Or so that's the part that trying to get them to understand that you can have it, but you got to have a mindset to not only get it but keep it. So how do you handle that when you get kids who think I'm poor? We don't have no disposable income. I have no money to save.
Yeah, but the first thing is changing the words. One of the things that I do is I tell them to, I'm not talking to them. I tell them I want to talk to that power within, because you're only poor. That's a thought. If you knew you had riches, the money is your thoughts, not the paper. I get into the history with them also. But the first thing I do is I tell them I want you to close your eyes, don't move your mouth, don't move your tongue, don't move your vocal cord, and say bank on I am. And when they do that and they hear that voice within, I said, that's the power that you're not tapping into. You're only poor if you think that. Whatever you put behind I am is going to become your reality. So I teach them that if you deposit positive thoughts behind I am, you can bank on your withdrawals going to be positive. Okay. But if you deposit negative thoughts behind I am, you can bank on your withdrawal to be negative. So once it's like you're not poor, you just don't know, you just haven't been taught.
Yeah.
Like I tell them that the education that is given today in 2022 is the same education that was given to my grandmother. That Black people, you have to get a job. Well, no, you could be your own entrepreneur. An employee is nothing but a slave in the 21st century. When you deal with the numbers, they keep telling us things and we keep believing it because we're drinking out of the same dirty glass. But once you see a clean glass, like the so-called war, or the gun violence. Now, being a baby boomer and being in the fire department in the 90s, I see the same thing going on. And, without getting too deep into the system, but there's some things that I know that we're under the black boys, the Black young men are under attack again. It's the same thing that happened in the 90s. So I'm just trying to get out there, and I don't know those children, but I do know the ones that I have coached. I know the ones I have come in contact with. So they know that I don't lie to them. I come straight. You do this is what's going to happen. Numbers don't lie. People do. So I can't come and give them a pie in the sky. And, it's just like I read the book on the poverty industry, which talks about how you have all this money. There's been over $60 million that have come to Philadelphia for crime and violence since 2017. What happened to all that money? Because everything is going up. That's because they come to a program and the organization gets the money, and the children and everybody else, they don't have the benefit. So what I've created is a way for the organization, which is a legal person. Any 501c3 is a legal person. So if you have a person keep coming after you asking for money, you get tired of that. But if there's a way for the organization, the members, and the communities to win, that's promoting peace. And we're not promoting peace. We're promoting how to prevent gun violence, how to stop crime. If you keep repeating those same words over and over, violence, crime, drugs, murders, that goes into your subconscious.
I think we're all for the financial piece, but there's also, because I think, and you and I talked about this before, and I want to go back to the financial piece. Our approach has been off for the last 10 years. And I'll say it because it's not just one thing. It has to be a holistic approach. You can teach somebody how to, and I'm as an example, how to handle money, but if they don't have good character integrity, it's still going to not turn out well. There's a bunch of people in the state penitentiary with 4.0 GPAs who did what they're supposed to do in school, but poor character and integrity. So I think that's what needs to happen. It needs to be more people need to be at the table, so they can hear different opinions and not just think, like when I hear people say it's just about a job. Well, there's plenty of jobs out there. Some people are going to choose not to take a job. So how do you get that person past that? So there's so many things that we have to do to correct it. I love the financial piece because I do think, poverty becomes generational when we're ignorant. And we just continue to pass the ignorance on down because, I'm going to buy a new pair of sneakers every time I get an extra couple bucks because my dad did it. My dad was always sharp. I'm not going to invest my money because I've heard I know people still go to check cashing place, which drives me crazy.
What's the check cashing place?
See, yeah, because I wouldn't let you go there. But check cashing place, my son's like, what's a check cashing place? Well, you would go pay, they charge you 3 to 4% of your money to pay you. So they'll cash your check, but they charge you 3 to 4%. So people pay that fee because they don't want to go to banks because of ignorance. So I think we got to teach people about manage money. We don't, every Christmas, every sale, everybody goes out and buy big screen TVs. I don't see empty computer boxes or laptop boxes. So this is what we got right.
That's because of the words. Every time you turn around, you hear on WDAS, the Black community has a $1.6 trillion spending power. Okay, yeah. The word, what does spend mean? Spend means to waste. Spend means to exhaust. Spend means to give away. So when a foreigner comes over and gets that visa, they're told go into the Black community to work with each other. We have trained them that if you go there, they will come to you and buy your ice before they go to their own brother to buy their ice. That's why everybody comes into the Black community and gets rich over and over and over again. Now, speaking on the jobs, right? Now, there's many jobs out there, but is that job going to satisfy their economic dilemma? The one thing that I've listened to at these different town hall meetings is, there's many jobs, make $20 an hour, yada, 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 and people start applauding. And I'm like, when are we going to have an accountant up here on this one of these panels? Because if I have a parent that has 2 children, right? That person or that parent needs to make a minimum $6,925 a month. That means that parent needs to have a job that's paying $43.28 an hour. Numbers don't lie, people do. You could go out to the Economic Policy Institute's family budget calculator.
But that's part of the problem because a lot of these people out here that are murdering and killing, they not a family of 2, man. You got some of these young boys out here, man, who are single. So I'm just saying, wait a minute, hear me out, wait a minute. So there's 2 sides to the story. We always put that side up, and I agree with you. Minimum wage need to be raised, and people need to be paid accordingly. But there's folk out there with no job, robbing, stealing. So there's 2 different narratives that we got to be careful when we just paint half of it. That's my point. I agree that for some, we definitely need that. We definitely got to have it. But a guy graduated from high school. Go ahead.
They were doing that in the 90s too. I was at a political event a couple of weeks ago at Penn Memorial, and Shapiro. My question was on health, and was talking about the cost of health care, mental health, and cost of prescriptions. And I let them know, listen, I'm a 29-year vet of the Philadelphia Fire Department. I started in 1992. And in 1992, the problem was prescription costs. The problem was healthcare. The problem was mental, So 30 years later, we still had the same problem. Back in 1992 to 1996, I got burnt. I love going into a burning building. Love it, just like Steph Curry, like shooting 3-pointers. What burnt me out mentally was picking up the children off the ground This is when they first started wearing the white shirts. This is when wet first started coming in. Wet, that formaldehyde and the weed, that didn't start coming in until the end of the 90s. We're in the midst of that, back then. That's why I said I see the same thing happening over and over again.
And that was my point.
If we go back 20 years, the same thing was happening. So we're still drinking from the same dirty glass, thinking that is going to change. So now we have to move with the technology. So they are going out there killing. I don't want to get into the government-made weed and everything else, but we have to change, and we have to finally come together. Do you know which movement was the most successful and has never been repeated in the Black community?
Yeah, the Black Panthers.
Which movement?
The Black Panthers.
Nope.
What?
The Montgomery boycott.
Yeah, but see, what you're talking about. But you're talking about two different populations, and that's the part I think we have to be careful when we take everybody out there that's doing stuff that they shouldn't be doing and lump them into that same category. The people who are not making enough money, who can't get ahead. Because I get it. I'm a North Philly kid. I was in that category. I bust my butt to the things. I'm not comparing me to anybody else. But my issue is we got to be careful because we take everybody who's not doing what they're supposed to do and we lump them into that same category. And that's not accurate. Minimum wage need to be raised. You know what? That's why I'm going up. That's why I'm glad you're doing what you're doing. Because we got to teach people to better manage their money. I agree with that 250%.
The number one thing we have to teach is which side of the quadrant are you on? Because they're never going to make minimum wage high enough for an adult with two children to see. So now when they understand by playing cash, you need to be a business owner. You need to be an entrepreneur. Now you're on the right side, on the left side of the quadrant. You have 95% of the people and only 5%, and they're paying, they've got 5% of the people paying 95% of the taxes. On the right side of the quadrant, you have 5% of the people making the money, and they're only paying they're paying less than 95% of the taxes. It's all in the code. That's why they follow the code.
But I
don't know the code.
But I disagree. People know
have a business. This is why I'm teaching the parents instead of.
But people know what side of the quadrant they're on. Now, the people know what side of the quadrant they're on. The average person understands, which side of the quadrant they're on. So I think
they have to know the quadrant first. They don't know what the quadrant is. They have to know.
The average person that you talk to, I'm talking about people who may not know, but the average person you talk to that says, working or doing things, they know that they're on the side that's paying the taxes. They get that part. They need to learn how not to pay as much in tax. They need to learn how to invest their money, how not to buy the big screen TV the first time they get a check. But again, we have to be careful because I think my whole thing about anything in economics, and since we're on this subject, that's one of the biggest tricks they play on us is they lump all of us into one category. And they treat us all the same way. And that's the problem with the educational system. It's not a one size fit all. That's the problem with the social services. Everybody on social services is not frauding people or ripping people off. You made a strong comment about minimum wage, and I agree. So I also agree that's why we have to be business owners. But we as people got to pay more too. That's the other side of the coin, man. We can't just expect everybody else, and we don't pay more.
It's not as hard. See, I don't know who they are. I don't know who they and them. If I come to you and say, let's promote proper education and cooperative economics, Here's what we got to do. Now you have a choice whether or not to understand the numbers and help me, or you don't. See, I don't have to go everywhere. I'm coming after one. And from one, the one thing I told the children at community college, right? We have been taught that on the back of the dollar bill, there's a pyramid. And what is the common thing? What is the common thing about that pyramid? What's on the back? What does that mean? Some people say it's Illuminati, yada, 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 the enlightened ones, right? What I tell the children is, you know you are at the top of your own pyramid. And they look at me like I'm crazy, or I'm like, let's do the math. Let's do the math. Young man, what's your name again, sir?
Devin.
Me? Oh, Devin. I'm sorry.
Devin, how many people did it take to create you?
That's a tough one. 2.
Two. How many people did it take to create those 2?
I guess technically 4.
No, it's not technically. That's absolutely correct.
Yeah.
4. And now you got 8, made those 4, 16, made those 8. So if you keep going, that's a pyramid. You're on the top of the pyramid. You are the enlightened one, but we've been told that we came from dust. And we've been under that mindset ever since. The hardest thing in the world to do is to put dust back together. When you put dust back together, then you have matter. See, the Black Lives Matter. Yes, that's true, but you got to break the words down and don't put them all together. Black lives mean to live matter. So the rules that we go by is you have to be fruitful. You have to multiply. You have to replenish. These are the rules that I teach the children. So I'm taking them back to the beginning.
All right, we got 3 minutes. So I got to ask this question. So what do you mean?
Yes, sir.
So what do you mean we've been told we've been come by dust? Because I want to make sure I'm taking this in the right context.
Oh, it's the same thing that my grandmother was taught when she was 4 years old. And I have my slave master's Bible that we came from Adam, that we came from dust. No, we were turned into dust through the making of a Negro, but we are from the one. And once we understand that we all are each other's brothers, now we can. That's why it says you have 2 hands.
But that's not accurate.
One hand. One hand to help yourself.
But what you just shared is not accurate, and I don't want to get into the history lessons here. But
I know the history.
No, apparently not, because you made a comment.
No.
Hear me out.
But my grandmother was taught.
But I'm trying to explain to you, right, and that's why it's important that we know the correct history is we try to correct stuff. Mm-hmm. And when you try to correct stuff with erroneous information, it just makes it worse. That was my point. And we only got a minute left, so we can't get into it now. But it's a documentary out called Unspoken on Amazon Prime. Check it out. And it break all it down to you about where, about the color of the Africans in the Bible, how we contributed to it, the original man, what the original man looks like. And it gives you the whole history of it. So it's not that, so you kind of got to dig into it.
Yeah,
but we got a minute to go.
88,000. I go back to 88,000 BC. Right now, all I'm worried about is these children that are dying out here on these streets, that are being arrested at the age of 12 and 14, being charged as adults.
But we're doing
that's the only thing.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is when we teach wrong history, we do what Caucasians are doing. They're telling our kids that they're descendants of slaves and they don't have any value, and they're trying to take Black history out their schools. We got to make sure we're not doing the same thing. So it is
I'm
important,
not.
but it isn't. No, it is important that we know history and we know the correct history, so they understand they're descendants of king and queens. So they understand that we had black inventors, we had a black Wall Street. History just didn't start in 1619. That they
Yes.
understand
Yeah.
that they
Yeah. I teach
contributed
that.
to building this country. So I just think it's important that we don't. The concept of I came from dust is erroneous, and I want to make sure that as
I
we
know.
teach kids,
I
man,
know.
that they have value. So we
I
don't.
know.
That's it. We had 8 o'clock,
Yeah.
man. I'm sorry. We got to wrap up. We got to get you back for part 2.
This was
But,
awesome.
yeah,
I just
but-
want to say thank you. This is a
We do websites
very good
again.
experience.
We need your information, how to get in touch with you on the websites again.
Yeah, I just want to ask you to plug yourself. What you got going on next?
They can reach me at meetcoachtre.com. Meetcoachtre.com. And right now, I'm focused on working with these children and working with anybody that wants to help themselves first and then to help others. It's not free; it's going to cost you, but the focus is on helping everybody pay their monthly expenses. That's the number one thing. That's how we can get them into peace, proper education, and cooperative economics.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Love to hear it.
That is definitely awesome, man. And get a website for how to get the game again.
Oh, richdad.com.
Yeah.
Rich
All right.
Dad.
Or they can go to Amazon.
All right. Everybody got that, man?
Yeah.
All right, man. Yo, appreciate you, man. I can't wait to get you plugged in over at OEC, man. As a matter of fact, when I get you plugged in, I'm probably going to invite a few people out to check you out. So they can see the great work you're doing, man, and maybe we can multiply this thing to get some education going some other ways, and maybe we can do a game night. I got an idea from the barbecue thing, man. Maybe the space that we're in when you came to Legacy, maybe we do a cash flow game night.
Yeah, because one of the things I was thinking about when Harambe called me, I was like, I could put Harambe and OES, the OEC together, and we can have one big cash flow get together, and the children can work with each other because they're the ones that are going to be working with each other in the next 10 to 20 years.
All right, so we're gonna make that happen.
Build that network now.
Well, we appreciate you, bro, man. You stay safe out there, bro, and we'll connect so we can get ready for OEC. All right, we're gonna do this cash flow party, man. We're gonna do this cash flow party, man. Because yeah, definitely, man.
Yes, sir.
All right, man. Stay safe, bro.
Thank you for your time.
We appreciate everybody listening, man. We're glad you guys tuned in for another episode of Above Average Black Men, man. Chris is not here.
He's here in spirit.
We had Coach Tre. We got myself. We got Devin.
Like, follow, subscribe, share, comment, interact with us. Above Average Black Men on all platforms.
And we will see you guys next week. Chris will be back. Talk to you guys later.
Peace.
Peace, man.